Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Korea Pod. My name is Henry Shin. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you receive podcasts. Helps us get the word out, and we certainly always appreciate that. We are going to be talking about K-pop, and something that I told you that we definitely wouldn't necessarily talk about quite often here on the podcast, but it's actually a different version of this. This isn't about the Korean wave and how BTS is doing amazing and how K-pop is infiltrating various markets, and we're seeing this mania of fans all over the world loving these idol, these boy band, these girl groups. Nope, we're talking about something here in Korea that is a phenomenon among the elementary school students, and how certain schools are now moving to ban this song. I'm talking about the group iKON and their huge hit that they had released earlier this year. iKON had this song. It was entitled in English Love Scenario. In Korean, the title is 사랑을 했다. Very popular song, but the interesting thing about this song is that it's not just popular among the typical fans that you would expect, maybe the high school crowd or even young adults, people who follow K-pop and love these boy groups. It was actually very popular among the very young. We're talking about people who are in the early elementary school age. And so the question is, why was this song so popular? Well, there are various factors as to why this is, but the iKON song, Love Scenario, 사랑을 했다, one of the factors that goes for it is that it's a catchy song. I mean, there are a lot of catchy songs from K-pop. I mean, that's the inherent appeal to why K-pop is so popular. But 사랑을 했다, or Love Scenario, really is a song that is almost perfectly primed to be adored by these young kids. Now, for one, it's a relatively slower paced song than what you're used to with these idol groups, these boy bands. And so it's easier to kind of follow along. And the melody is also quite easy. It's almost akin to the children's songs that you hear, with a very kind of lilting and flowing melody. Also, the lyrics are also quite easily understandable. My bad impression of this is the lyrics go like 사랑을 했다 우리가 만나 지우지 못할 추억이 됐다. So that kind of beginning part of that song has become such a catchphrase that you're seeing a bunch of different parodies of the lyrics, people twisting the lyrics around, coming up with their own clever little rhymes for it. Even the kids are getting in the action with that. And so 사랑을 했다 has become this phenomenon among the younger crowd because of the fact that it is a little bit slower paced. The lyrics are easy to catch on. It also doesn't have a very long extended rap section. There is a bit of a rap section in the middle of the song, but again, nothing too difficult to follow along with. And that's also something that's easily sort of absorbed by the younger kids. And it also doesn't have the elements of a lot of the foreign words. As you know, with the recent phenomenon with K-pop, and to appeal to a wider audience, especially an English-speaking audience, you'll see a lot of the K-pop songs, including with BTS, where English lyrics are a major part of that song. That's not necessarily the factor here with Love Scenario. I mean, there are, of course, mentions of Love Scenario and a few English phrases sprinkled in, but it's not a huge part of that song. So that's another aspect of it as to why it is more easily accessible by the younger crowd. Now, you might be wondering, why the heck is Henry talking about all of this right now? I have two kids. I have two boys. The first kid is actually a first grader in elementary school. So he is just into 초등학교, which is a big deal here in Korea, and he loves this song. He's somehow caught on to it. He's watched the video on YouTube multiple times. He's followed along trying to copy the dance choreography, and he's singing it all the time, every day, repeatedly, to the point where, you know, as a parent, you go, well, it's kind of funny that you're singing along to a K-pop song, but, you know, after a while, if you hear a lyric and a melody over and over and over and over in the head, to the adult brain, you start to go crazy, right? Every day, all day long, you're hearing 사랑을 했다, 사랑을 했다. It's gonna kind of drive you up the wall. So I think that's the phenomenon that's been experienced by a lot of parents. And so again, you're hearing some complaints to parents as why are all the kids doing this? Why are they listening to and singing this song repeatedly. There was a viral video that came out where iKON is under the YG Entertainment banner. YG is one of the big three here, along with JYP and SM, the three big music entertainment labels. And so iKON is a member of that group. And Yang Hyun-suk, the famous CEO of YG Entertainment, he put out a video on his Instagram showing these elementary school kids in various places singing the song Love Scenario and captioning it, "What's going on here?" Really kind of bringing to public attention this phenomenon among the young elementary school kid crowd. And we're talking about kids aged in their 6, 7, 8-year-old range who are really into this song. And so what is the concern with parents? Well, people are saying not just the reasons I cited about just driving you off the wall, hearing 사랑했다 우리가 만나 every day, all day, repeatedly. That's obviously annoying to some people. But there are some other maybe legitimate concerns where some parents have been saying that they are worried that the lyrics are not age appropriate. And so, it talks about loving somebody, being kind of almost suicidal in their love for this person, and how this breakup has become this emotionally wrenching kind of experience for the person singing the song. And they're talking about topics that maybe fairly could not be deemed to be appropriate for these little kids to listen to. And so my first kid, first grader in elementary school, he listens to it. He sings it all the time, but he's got a little brother. That kid, he's a kindergarten-aged kid, my second boy. And he's, as second boys often do, just follows their older brother, and just copies what they do. And so he's been singing the song, and he's been learning the lyrics, and he's been trying to copy the dance moves as well. And so that's cute. But again, a lot of the other parents feel that that's not a good thing. You don't want to expose your kids to this adult content at such an early age. Some of the themes in K-pop may be a little bit disturbing, and maybe they don't want to have them exposed to that. Maybe they want kids to have a more innocent, carefree experience growing up without all of this sort of, the purists will say this dirty lyric stuff coming out. And they want them to maybe focus on their studies or stick with songs that are more of the children variety and not get caught up. They'd rather have them sing the Shark song, right? The Shark Family song, rather than iKON's Love Scenario. So what we were seeing now is that certain schools, kindergartens and elementary schools, have started to ban the playing of the song, because what they found is that once this song is played or listened to anywhere, all the kids just start singing along with it and just going crazy because it is sort of their anthem right now as it is. And so we've seen then certain schools come out and say, look, it's an inappropriate song. We're not going to allow this to be played or sung in our schools. And so then that kind of gives rise to the other question of, is that the right way to go? Is that something that should be done? That kind of censorship to these kids. I'll give you two sides of the argument. The side that says, yes, that is something that should be done, is that schools have a right to impose their own rules. And if they think something is inappropriate, they should indeed enforce that kind of a policy. So if they say a kid should not be fighting in class, they should enforce that rule. And along the lines of that, if they think this song is inappropriate or maybe dangerous in some way, they should definitely try to impose that rule and not expose the children to that so-called dangerous or bad influence, including the lyrics of a certain song like Love Scenario or 사랑을 했다. And that is addressing the concerns of a lot of kids' parents who, even at that young age, and I got to say this is a problem, and we're going to probably talk about this in future podcasts about the inherent chaotic education system here in Korea, but that is a period of time where a lot of these kids are being pushed to focus on their studies, even at kindergarten, even at first grade age in elementary school, where they're being sent to hagwons. They're being told to study various things. English is not a forced curriculum for young elementary school students anymore here. From the first to third grades, English is not allowed to be taught in public schools. And so a lot of parents now have taken it upon themselves and their own personal expenses to send their kids to English hagwons, math hagwons, science hagwons, even coding hagwons these days. And they want their kids to be prepared early on to gird themselves for the intense competition that's going to take place later on in their elementary school careers, going into middle school, and then, of course, high school, when they're going to be all consumed with getting good grades and then studying for and getting good scores on the college entrance exams, the sunung, to hopefully get into one of the Sky universities, Seoul, Korea, and Yonsei universities. And so from that early age all the way up to when they turn 17 and 18, their life is going to be consumed with studying and trying to beat the competition, when millions and millions and millions of other kids and other parents are pushing their kids to do the exact same thing to get those few thousand spots at the Sky universities and hopefully graduate and get a cushy job at a chaebol or a government institution and live the rest of their life in prosperity. And we're talking about 0.something% of the population able to do that, but 99% of the population trying to push their parents, their kids to do that and succeed. And so it's just not a conducive environment for a child to be happy. It's why the OECD has typically ranked Korean kids as being the most miserable kids on the planet. Got the highest suicide rates here among students among the OECD countries as well. This has taken a bit of a dark turn, and I didn't intend it to be that way, but I'm saying that a lot of the justification for parents is that instead of listening and having fun playing and singing to icons 사랑을 했다, they should be focused on studying, even at that young age. You can tell from my tone that I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment, and it's perhaps because I am not of the mindset that the Korean educational system is conducive to my child's personal happiness, and you just want them to have fun. So understanding their legitimate concerns and their real desires and ambitions for their kids, let me give you the other side of the argument then. First, the argument that this song is a bad influence. Now, I can understand, there's lyrics that are could be somewhat questionable, like 갈비뼈가 찌릿찌릿한 느낌, and these ideas that love and desire and heartbreak and loss shouldn't necessarily be the part of a first grader's vernacular, and even should be conceptually a part of their consciousness growing up, when they shouldn't even have to have those kind of worries or stresses in their life. So I get that could be a concern, but overall, you got to say, you can't not expose the kids to these kind of concepts or ideas or lyrics. You can guide them. You can say, it's just a song, it's just a lyric, and you got to really even question at that age, do they even really consciously know what they're saying? I mean, it's all just words and rhymes and fun melodies all put together. Are they really having esoteric philosophical thoughts on what the singers of icon are trying to convey with this idea of love scenario and 사랑을 했다 and heartbreak and breaking up with somebody? My contention is probably not. And the other argument I would make against necessarily saying that this is a huge evil influence on the kids is that besides 사랑을 했다, love scenario, there are untold thousands of other sensory attacks on the kid, grabbing their attention. You could argue could be worse influences. They're being exposed to commercials on TV that show women scantily clad or beer being consumed. They're at home in the living room while their parents are watching some TV drama where there's some very violent or explicit scene that is being exposed on their television set. So you're trying to block icons 사랑을 했다. Are you going to be able to block all of that? Are you going to be able to block them from watching any TV? Even if you let them watch YouTube and you let them watch some kids channel or some cartoon, ads inevitably come up. Now, you usually trust the Google algorithm to target ads based on the content to be age appropriate, but sometimes that's not the case. I've played YouTube clips for my kids, and the commercials that pop up on the YouTube app are things like beer or some other aspect that isn't necessarily age appropriate. So the argument that this one song by iKON, Love Scenario, is going to be the root of all evil and corrupt all these young, poor kids, I don't necessarily buy. And you can make the counter on me. I mean, we are all people who have grown up as kids, and we've all sung songs and enjoyed music when we were a kid. And could we say that that music was any less inherently problematic or corrupt or dangerous to our minds? Even just a few years back, a lot of these kids who I guess would be high school students by now, when Gangnam Style was a phenomenon, everyone sang that song. Everyone did the Gangnam Style dance, not just in Korea, but all over the world, apparently. I mean, at that time, the most popular and most clicked on YouTube video. But besides Gangnam Style, if you listen to the lyrics there, I don't think it's a debate, but those lyrics are way more problematic and explicit and risque than Love Scenarios. Love Scenario is more of this kind of plaintive, very sentimental kind of song of heartbreak. Gangnam Style is a little bit more raw. It's dealing with topics that are a little bit more, I would say, adult in nature than Love Scenario, and tons of kids were exposed to that song quite vehemently. I mean, there was one interesting comment made online by a netizen as far as the backlash against Love Scenario, saying that this is being kind of blown out of proportion and schools are being stupid for basically trying to ban this and parents are being silly for trying to not expose their kids to Love Scenario. Is that this netizen was saying when they were in elementary school, they always sang this one song by Park Ji-young, 총 맞을 것처럼, which is this, again, a song about heartbreak and loss, but the title really implies getting shot by a bullet. And so, again, arguably those lyrics are more problematic, but that person was claiming that they sang that song all the time as an elementary school kid, but they never even thought about the lyrics at all. They gave 0% thought as to the meaning, as to the implications of what Baek Ji-young was singing at that time. And so as a parent now, you can have that same perspective as remembering, well, I was a kid once. What music did I listen to? I can tell you when I was a kid, I listened to a lot of rap, hip-hop, the nascent emergence of groups like Run DMC. I'm really showing you how old I am by telling you what I was listening to. But those lyrics obviously very much where parents would think was not appropriate. And you can go to my parents' generation and whatever they were listening to, rock and roll or Elvis Presley or I don't know. Every generation will have music that will be thought of as inappropriate or should not be exposed to the younger generation, especially for kids. And it's going to be a repeated cycle throughout. These kids who are singing Love Scenario and going crazy over that and the worries that parents of my age are having regarding that, those kids are going to grow up to be adults themselves. They're going to, some of them have kids of their own, and their kids are going to go to kindergarten and elementary school, and there's going to be some song coming out. I don't know what the trend will be then. To be honest, it's really going to be impossible to predict what kind of music will be popular, but you can bet that our kids' generation right now, once they become parents, there's going to be the same outcry and same thought about, man, the music and the kids and the rock and roll these days and all this corruptive influence on our poor, vulnerable and impressionable youth. We need to do something about it. And that repeated sort of generational backlash against younger music and younger culture is just going to be extremely predictable. It'll happen over and over again. And so I don't feel it does need to rise to a level of crisis. It's obviously not a huge controversy, but it is enough of a controversy that parents have been speaking out about it, and where schools have also been trying to clamp down on it, certain schools at least. And so it is a question of whether that's appropriate or not, whether the schools are overstepping their bounds, whether the parents are just not being cool enough. And again, you raise your kids the way you want to raise them, and it's not my business to tell you whether that's right or wrong. Some parents may be very focused on academics. Some parents may be very conservative, and they not want their kids to be exposed to lyrics that are deemed too adult. And other parents and their kids might want to have a more flexible and free lifestyle and have their kids not necessarily be exposed to the most evil elements of society and be corrupted and be influenced and become criminals or vagrants or what have you. But there might be a different philosophy where parents and kids say, you need to not sugarcoat things, and you need to show that these are things in the world. You might enjoy certain things, like a simple pop song, like iKON's 사랑을 했다. But you can also show them that there are bad things in the world too. And you talk to the kids and you say, look, these are things that are going to be coming your way. It might be disturbing. It might be considered weird. But here's what I think about the situation. And you have that dialogue with the kid, hopefully in a way that the child, whatever their age is, can understand and know the implications of, and know how you as a parent, as a loving parent, feel about that, and whether it is something that you hope does not influence your kid in a wrong way. And so you hope that that is the approach that I would take personally as a parent, but other parents will feel there needs to be a bit more of a draconian measure, and that it's easier to try to limit the exposure rather than engage in this dialogue and talk about what is considered to be right and wrong, and for the kid, and trusting the kid, most importantly, to make that judgment for themselves as human beings, as people with their own sovereign rights. And it's difficult, I understand, and especially if you are a parent in Korea and you know that these kids are in for a very, very difficult time as they progress in age, get through elementary school, go through middle school, and then go to high school, that it's just too much pressure to deal with. So honestly, I don't know if this is necessarily sounding like a rant, but people might think this isn't necessarily a topic that is as weighty and serious and worthy of discussion as some of the things like questions of how to deal with North Korea's denuclearization, or what the future of Korean politics is. How are the conservative parties going to recover from the debacle of the past democratic elections that we've had, the local elections? And so, yes, this is not necessarily as big and hot button an issue as those very pressing matters. However, I think this is just speaking more as personally a parent of two young kids, that it is pertinent to many people. Not everyone's a parent, but a lot of people, like myself, are concerned about the well-being and the future of their kids. And so when you see an issue like this arise, especially something like a song like iKON's Love Scenario sort of make waves and become popular and become a topic of discussion, and knowing that it does affect your kids, and know that your kids are personally part of that group that has been swept up in this phenomenon, you think about it and you think about the wider implications. I didn't necessarily mean for it to veer into the topic of discussion of the plight of the educational system here in the country, or how there is this inherent, very almost overbearing pressure on kids at a very early age. But it is real. It is a pressure that certainly exists, and you do hope that the situation can improve itself through whether it's government policies, whether it's the attitudes of parents, whether it's the educational system itself reforming some of the way they do things, and maybe even a kind of paradigm shift of how society is perceiving things that are considered successful, whether it's your educational merits or whether it's the occupation that you have. And these are things that will change over time, hopefully for the better, and specifically, hopefully for Korean society and for the kids of Korean society as they grow up and become adults and the future leaders of the country. And maybe this one case, this one controversy and varying opinions over iKON's Love Scenario, it's a microcosm of what's going on, but it's a question of how you let your kids enjoy themselves. And for me, personally, I say, have fun, enjoy it, be mindful of what could be considered problematic for the kid and for what is influencing the kid, but overall, let them enjoy themselves, especially at that young age. And if they happen to like this one song by a group that is part of YG Entertainment, why not enjoy it? You will come across things that are going to be a lot more stressful and a lot more difficult in life. And so whether the particular lyrics of a single song is going to be something that ruins the outlook for your kid's life, I don't think it's that serious. I hope a lot of people also feel the same way and allow their kids just a little bit of a breathing space, especially when they are at such a young age in their kindergarten, early elementary school time, when they're just trying to get their bearings and trying to fit into, see what their role in society is. We do hope that many of the kids around that are enjoying this song can continue to study hard, be happy, be successful in life, and ultimately find themselves to, as they become adults, having that perspective of what it means to be a valued member of Korean society, regardless of whether they were a fan of Love Scenario or not. All right, so a little bit of a tangential topic here, not quite as serious and deep as some of the other things that we've talked about in the past, but nevertheless, something that I found of interest and hopefully you found of interest as well. That's going to do it for us. Just another reminder, if you like what you hear, if you get some value out of it in any ways, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts. Helps us get the word out. You can always follow us on Facebook as well. There is the KoreaPod webpage. If that's the way you engage in social media, you can click like on the KoreaPod Facebook page, and then you'll get updates as to when the new episodes are loaded up, and you can actually listen to it directly from Facebook as well. We have the actual KoreaPod Libsyn page as well, and you can just look that up. The URL is koreapod.libsyn.com, and that also will give you the updates and the show notes on all of the various episodes, so definitely look that up as well. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back with another edition of the KoreaPod. I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you again soon. Till then, my name is Henry Shin. Goodbye.